All right, let's get some materials together. We've got our pencils, our soft pastels, our pastel mat. We're going to tape it down to the paper so we have a nice edge around that. And once we get it taped down, we're going to pull out some carbon paper because I have a nice sketch that I did that we're going to use to transfer that onto the paper. Okay, there's the sketch that I created from the reference photo that I found on Pixabay. I've sketched it out roughly, you can kind of tell. I'm going to use some carbon paper underneath. And I'm just using a wooden stylus. They're used for various things. It doesn't matter. You can use a pencil, a pen. Just don't press too hard because you don't want to create grooves on the actual pastel mat because sometimes it's hard to get the pigment to fall into those grooves. So just kind of follow along. I'm not being exact because a lot of the lines there represent the hair. But, you know, as you go along, particularly around the eye, I would want to be more careful to put in where highlights are, the outline. I'm not going to necessarily trace the eyelashes because of the fact that once I get that color in underneath it, that's when that's going to be pulled in. So I'm just really kind of wanting to indicate which areas are lighter, darker. You'll see a lot of little marks I'm making to show the direction of the fur or the hair. Horse's hair on its face is very short, but you still want to carry that direction, especially with this particular one. You'll see there's kind of a speckled effect to its fur color. I keep saying fur, but I'm thinking horses don't have fur, they have hair. But you know what I mean, right? Okay, so checking to see if it's transferring the way I expected, which it is. So I can remove the carbon paper and the sketch. Now I'm going to take a soft pastel. We're going to map out those areas with the soft pastel. And again, you know, around the hair, that's the longer hair, which is the mane in this case, and then the forelock in the front. I'm just kind of leaving those areas open right now, but I'm blocking out the areas that are particularly dark, that are going to be almost black with the soft pastel. So you can tell by the reference photo which areas are which and how we're going to be just kind of lightly, right now, just lightly laying it on there to get those areas mapped out. And then we'll go over again after we blend that out. But for now, you'll see the process of getting each little section kind of with that soft pastel. I was going to use pan pastel on this, but because there were so many different areas, and I don't know, I just decided that with this project, I think the soft pastel was going to do better for me. All right, now we've got a lot of blending to do. So you see all of those different areas have been kind of laid in just with the basic color. No stress, doesn't have to be precise at this point because we can do a lot of adjusting when working with pastels. You will notice I'm going with the direction of the hair just to make sure that when we get to our pencil portion of this, we'll be able to see a little bit better. We'll have that as a guide as well. Laying out some black strips for the hair here, kind of like a background. All of the colors are going to be blended together, but right there at the edge, you'll notice in the reference photo, there's some dark hair coming at the forehead kind of area, and you don't want to have to go in after you've laid out the hair. So we'll be adding that in as well before we start laying the final hairs from the mane and the forelock. You'll see the purple kind of pink color in the reference photo, and so I'm laying down all of these different colors to get that depth and character that his hair holds. It's such a beautiful photograph. I'm just so pleased to have found it. It's from Pixabay. And I really loved just the speckling on his hair, the variation in the color of the mane, and the soft pink skin that's coming through. And like I said, here we're going to go putting in some of these hairs that are kind of near the edge, that the mane is going to kind of overlay a little bit, and easier to go under first and then get that main hair coming through than it would be to try to fill in, to backfill it. And you'll see I'm starting to get some of the different areas that are going to be shaded and get those kind of started, at least, so that, same reason, so that when we do our hair from the mane, it's not going to interfere with that so much. So blending, blending, blending. You'll notice I'm using my glassine to rest my hand on to make sure I'm not disturbing what's underneath. You can use a piece of transfer paper. You can use just regular copy paper, whatever you have handy. If you don't have glassine, if you're using Pastelmat, you typically will, unless you're buying large sheets of it. Okay, so here, getting those, now some of the browns in there for that back section. And what I'm particularly paying attention to for myself is to see where the light is coming in. So you'll have some hairs that are more highlighted than others, and some areas. So now this lighter pencil is going to allow me to get some of that light captured on some of those hairs, even though there's a lot of darkness in that part of the photograph. This part of the mane is just got so many colors and it's sectioned. So like I said, at the top of the widest section of mane there's a lot of gray and soft violet, little ivory, and black and brown. So many colors that, you really have to kind of study your reference photo to pull those out. And when we get to that section, you'll note how we have that right to the left of his eye that is so light. Excuse me. So still going in with these different, now you see I've pulled that light in from that back section. This section here probably could go darker at the top, but I just kind of like the way it's all laying. So I'm just going to go with it. You should never try to duplicate every single hair. It would drive me crazy. I'm sure it would probably drive you crazy as well. It's more a matter of getting the tonal values, so recognizing where the lights and darks are. And with hair, you've got wherever the light is hitting it, it's going to be brighter, even if it's the same color hair. People that have red hair, they stand in the sunlight and they get that golden yellow glow where the sun's hitting it. If you've got black hair, a lot of times you'll see the blue in the hair. It's just a lot of different colors going on that you don't always think about. I'm putting in some more black just to get some more depth there. But then we'll be adding in each of these other colors until we get to, at the bottom, the rust. It's more of a rust color, which that contrast of the cool and the warm is, I think, what makes this particular photo so intriguing. Back at the top, we're focusing more on the purpley colors. Down at the bottom, we're focusing more on the red and the, I guess, a coppery color. They're going in with the gray, and we'll start working now up here on the top of the forehead. That section at the very top has really got a lot of kind of ivory in it, so I wanted to lay that in. Now, the most important part of any animal photograph or portrait, painting, drawing is the eyes. You've got to be able to really capture that eye in its, the hues, the way that the light's hitting it, the smoothness of it. This particular drawing, the eye is the focal point for sure because of that blue. Nowhere else, aside from in some areas of the hair where you can vaguely see a bluish kind of tint to that hair, right above his eye, for example, and some on the cheek. The blue in the actual eye itself is just absolutely glowing. So you want to be able to capture that, paying attention to the different areas outside of that section of the iris that has all of the color. You may not be able to tell, depending on how close you are to that reference photo, if you can see that there is some kind of a coppery color also around the rim of the blue in the iris. So the pupil is pretty dark. We're going to have the eyelashes coming over that. Again, this is part one of a two-part, because I want to get kind of into these details with you to kind of help you kind of navigate all of the nuances of getting pastel paintings and portraits done in a way that provides realism, but eliminates the stress that some people put on themselves when they're trying something like this. You just have to remember that nature is imperfect. Unless you're building, skyscrapers and things, getting the exact proportions, the exact angles and everything, that's when it's important, not when you're drawing an animal or anything in nature. It's just so fluid and often random, and it's just a whole different thing. I love painting all things nature. I love doing flowers and trees, all kinds of landscapes and water, but animals are, particularly with pastels, my absolute favorite thing to do. Some animals have longer hair. With the horses, of course, typically, not always, you'll have shorter hair on the face. You may get where, if depending on the horse that you're painting or drawing, you may see that you have more of a fuzzier look, like on a Shetland pony, for example. You'll get that type of feel on a Clydesdale, so it's not always just short hair, but there's just such a glow to horsehair. I just absolutely love it. Again, the importance of blending. The blending stumps really do come in handy. I like these little tiny ones. Every once in a while, I will use one of the larger ones, but most often I'm going to be using these smaller to get into these little areas without disturbing too much, to keep that form, but to have that blending to smooth it, And with pastels, you do want to make sure you're blending every layer. You should work in thin layers and, get that opportunity to make adjustments if you need to, and still have the tooth of the paper so it's grabbing the pigment the way it needs to. Particularly here in the pupil, we want to make sure that black is going to be very smooth and black. So there's just a lot going on in the eyes. They're just so important when you're doing any kind of animals. You'll note the different blues in there as well. There's a light, very, very light blue. That's what's creating that beautiful glow. So in smoothing, you want to make sure you maintain the structure of it. So I want to get along the edge where I've got that really dark blue. I want to make sure that that's kind of visible. That's going to make the black even seem blacker. But then also there are some just variations, that area right there where you've got a little bit of a darker, almost coming down lower than anywhere else. And at the very bottom of the colored area, you'll see there's almost like a gray. So all of these things that come together are what's going to make this really come to life for you. So take your time and just really kind of, if you have to step away, go get yourself a cup of coffee, put some music on and just take your time with it and enjoy the process. It's very rewarding. Once we get done with the eye portion of the video, we'll get into a little bit of the pencil work on the rest of the face. But this part in particular, I wanted to slow down and just let you see the process that I'm using to get this eye exactly the way I want it to be. There's that gold going in again. It's not gold really, but you see where it's coming through. It's hard to tell from the reference photo, but if you look closely at it, you will see those kinds of areas that have a little bit of a different color. Don't forget to leave a comment for me if you have any interest in something other than what I've already provided. I will be uploading new videos as I can. So remember to hit that bell if you want to be notified when I do. I really appreciate if you hit subscribe or give me a like, just so I can know that you were here. And I really appreciate the time that you're giving me to learn with me. I find so much joy in art that it just makes me that much happier to know that others are following along and getting that same kind of enjoyment. Gotta love those blending stumps. As I mentioned, all of the supplies will be in the description. If you are on your phone, it will be below. If you are on your TV or some other way of watching the YouTube, then you may have to just go up, and where you see the description on the left, you would click there, and it will allow you to see over on the right-hand side of your screen all of the descriptions, details such as the materials list that I use. Going in with some black now, just at the rim of the eye. There will be a lot of fine tuning taking place on this part. The skin that's around the eyelid itself, will need to be shaded and given that, little bit of it's a kind of a gray highlight to show that kind of ripple-y effect, wrinkly, I guess I should say, of the area around the eye. I'd love to know where you are in your art journey. So if you want to add that in the comments, just let me know, if you're a beginner or if you're more intermediate, or even if you're an advanced, just trying to get some additional kind of information from other tutorials. I spend so much time. It is a great way to learn, to watch how others do their artwork. One of the things that you should be careful of, though, that I've learned, along the way, is that when you find a technique that you're comfortable with, try to stick with other artists that have that same type of technique. Otherwise, you will become so scattered, and it makes it's overwhelming. I guess, essentially, it's really overwhelming if you try to take on so many different styles and methods. So find something that works for you and see if you can hone it to where you feel your confidence is growing and your comfort level. There we are at the end of part 1. I look forward to seeing you in part 2. Thank you.